So I just Googled AEW Winter is Coming. Oh, I'm sorry. What the fuck? I just Googled it just to see if it had its own Wikipedia article. Because I understand that it's not a pay-per-view, but it sure as shit is being presented as one. I think this is a much better thing to watch than the last pay-per-view, which was a waste of time, and money for anyone that may have paid for it, So even though it's a 2-hour episode of AEW Dynamite, the reality is that it's going to be more entertaining than the last AEW pay-per-view, and honestly more entertaining than a lot of what's been going on recently, right? At least on face value, it feels like a big deal somehow. Now, with that being said, it is a 2-hour show, and therefore we have to tolerate commercials, and we have to tolerate a relatively small card. Now, the card can be small if they don't fuck around. If there's no promos and no Orange Cassidy segments, then the card can be tolerated. Now, with that being said, I'm going to do something I seldom do. In lieu, as they say, of not reviewing last week's AEW just because of disgust, I've decided to do a preview for AEW Winter is Coming from top to bottom, motherfucks. Starting with the very top, the name, motherfucks, the name. AEW Winter is Coming. First of all, this is supposed to be some play, some pun on the reality that winter is in fact coming, because this is in December, I think. Or if not, it's like very late November. It's next week. So, you do the math. That's kind of weird. I don't like the name. Also, obviously, it's a play on Game of Thrones. How for like 15 seasons, these cocksuckers kept saying, winter is coming. I watched the first season of Game of Thrones, and every other sentence was, winter is coming. I was in law school at the time, before I watched it, but when it started getting popular, I was in law school, and a lot of people in law school were like really into it, They were like, oh, Hater, do you watch Game of Thrones? You would totally like it. And I'm like, you know what? Based on how you describe it, I would totally like it. It's like right up my alley, These are people, I was in my first year of law school, so these are people that like didn't really know me that well. I've known them for a couple of months, but like, we had all grown relatively close, and like they kind of thought that it's something I would like. And these are people that I really got along with, so I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. A few years down the line, I give it a shot. I forced my mom to watch it with me, because like me and my mom watch shows, and like she likes these dramas and things like that. And we started watching it. She's like, it's kind of weird. She's like, not my thing, too many dragons, right? And, mentions of dragons. And then I'm cool with it until the dragons actually show up, because I'm like, it's compelling, But now that you have dragons, I'm like, I can't take myself seriously. Like, I'm like in my late 20s at the time, not mid-20s, I guess, right? And I'm just like, dude, like, it's dragons, man. Like, you're presenting, and there's nothing wrong with dragons, but you're presenting them to me as if it's like a serious show. It's like this fucking dragons. But that's a personal preference, But one thing that I will say about Game of Thrones, that I said to my friends back in law school, and my friends from before that, since that, whenever Game of Thrones is discussed, I always bring up the whole winter is coming narrative, right? And I'm always told the following thing. Well, their calendar doesn't necessarily match ours in the sense that like a winter might last like 10 years and show up every 50 years, right? So when they say winter is coming, it could be years away. And I'm like, well, they speak about it with some urgency, right? They're like, winter is coming, winter is coming. So you're thinking to yourself, like, first episode, you're thinking to yourself, all right, episode 5, episode 6, winter's going to be here, motherfucks. And then when I find out from people talking about it that it's been like multiple seasons and winter hasn't come yet, I think to myself, what the fuck? What the fuck are they talking about then, right? So AEW is doing the same thing. Winter is coming. I don't know. It's nerdy. It's consistent with AEW's nerd, like narrative, and they're catering to the nerd demographic. Oh, I'm sure like Eris of Tragaron, whatever the fuck their names are, it's going to show up in a guest appearance. So the name is shit, motherfucks. The name is shit. Now, also considering like the name and the logistics of it, this should have been the pay-per-view. The throwaway match was obviously Moxley versus Eddie Kingston. This is a throwaway match. Nobody wants to see this. John Moxley versus Kenny Omega is obviously the pay-per-view match. This is the match that people want to see, and it's the first time ever that I think John Moxley has a legitimate chance of losing his title. I think he's going to lose personally, but I mean, he could win, obviously, but I think he's going to lose, but it's the first time that he's had this opportunity to lose, So that's why it feels like a big deal, like I mentioned in my other video. So the fact that this is not a pay-per-view, bothers me. It bothers me because it shows me that AEW has no idea on how to like properly book things, right? You book it the other way, you know? If the pay-per-view was set in stone and you had to do it that day, you just change things around, motherfuckers. You change things around. You just have Jon Moxley actually come and wrestle once in a while, and you have him wrestle Eddie Kingston in one of the 15 other AEW Dynamites that he hasn't been into. So I don't think there's any excuse for this. There's no excuse for Kenny Omega versus Adam Page being a pay-per-view match, right? When Kenny Omega can wrestle for the title. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for this horseshit throwaway tournament that involves people like Sammy Guevara, I think, to end on a pay-per-view. There's no reason for that. So that's a big mistake in my opinion. Now, as with every other card of a weekly TV show, there's going to be some throwaway garbage. So let's get started. The first match that I think is going to open the show personally, it's going to be Jericho versus Frankie Kazarian. This is stupid. The feud has consistently been Jericho versus Scorpio Sky. Scorpio Sky is the guy that's positioned to be the breakout star of SCU when they break up or whatever the fuck happens, right? Now, he's had matches with Jericho, so the logical thing to do would be Jericho versus Scorpio Sky. However, I personally think Scorpio Sky is the worst one out of the three, so I'm cool with Frankie Kazarian being in this match. What I'm not cool with is how this shit was thrown together last minute. You know what I mean? Like, they had a tag match. It was SCU, Daniels and Kazarian, versus Jericho and Hager. And Jericho and Hager won. And this led to the match of Kazarian versus Jericho. Now, I'm happy that we're seeing Jericho, because in an event of this magnitude, you need to have Jericho, right? But I honestly would rather have seen Jericho versus Orange Cassidy again and have Jericho win or something, But it is what it is. We'll tolerate this. Then we have Dr. Britt Baker, which has been a complete failure, versus some broad named Layla Hirsch. Great. No one cares, motherfuckers. No one cares. Then we have Darby Allin and Cookie Rhodes versus Team Taz. But instead of having Brian Cage, it's going to be Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. The one good thing about AEW last week was that Will Hobbs is now Powerhouse Hobbs, which fits him very well. And he has a new finisher. Instead of Spine Buster, he's got the World's Strongest Man, which is a very fitting finisher for a guy that's going to be called Powerhouse Hobbs. So it's going to be Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs versus Darby and Cookie Rhodes. This actually is going to be interesting to watch. I'm starting to like Ricky Starks, and I'm starting to like Team Taz. That was another highlight of last week's episode, was the whole Team Taz situation, where Cody Rhodes just, for no reason, tells Taz that, like, your son trains with me, which is such a cuck thing to say, It's the exact type of thing that a cuck would say to someone else, right? Obviously, Taz would prefer to train his own son, right? Kayfabe-wise and real life-wise, whatever the case may be, right? Obviously, Taz is more interested in his son's career than Cookie Rhodes is, right? So to throw that in someone's face, to basically be like, oh, your son trains with me, not with you, like, what the fuck? He's just trying to piss him off. And when you're trying to purposely piss someone off, that's called being a cuck. So Cookie Rhodes once again lived up to his namesake and became a cuck. The promo afterwards by Ricky Starks, where I thought the promo was well delivered, but the promo was kind of weird because Ricky Starks was like, let's be real. He's like, we're happy here. Tony Khan pays us good money. He puts us in the main event. And I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. The entire point of what Taz was doing was that they're not being put in the main event. That they're not being given opportunities. And then Ricky Starks comes in and validates all that. Nonetheless, the promo was decent from Ricky Starks. It would have been better than if Brian Cage delivered it. Brian Cage was there to just say some shitty catchphrases. None of them are going to catch on. They're all shit. He came off really cringy. Powerhouse Hobbs was just there to be silent. It was what it was. I'm looking forward to this match, though. I'm hoping that Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks beat Darby Allin and Cookie Rhodes. I hope that it ends with Powerhouse Hobbs hitting the World's Strongest Slam on Darby Allin and pinning him in the middle of the ring after Ricky Starks hits the Rochambeau on Cookie Rhodes. That's what should happen, What's probably going to happen is either Cookie and Darby are going to win, or Brian Cage and Taz are going to interfere, or Taz's son is going to get involved, and then the bad guys are going to win like that, So predictable shit from AEW, but what can you do, you know what I'm saying? Then we have the Battle Royal for the AEW Dynamite Diamond Ring. Now, I don't know if they're going to do this and then have a match against someone, or however they did it last year. But this is cool, right? It's a battle royal, so I mean, you're not expecting great things here, but it matters to an extent, right? The Dynamite dozen, or whatever Dynamite dozen, the Dynamite Diamond ring was presented, and they explained that it was going to be a yearly event, right? And it was presented in a way as the mid-card thing, right? Like MJF winning it was like a mid-card moment. It was like winning the Intercontinental title, you know what I mean? And even though it's not a title in the sense that you defend it and shit like that, it has been used for about a year, and it has been used correctly, right? If you compare it to something like King of the Ring, where nothing happens, like someone wins it and they call themselves King Corbin for a year, right? Which is stupid, right? Compare that to how the Dynamite Diamond ring has been used. It's been used as a prop by MJF as essentially his new finisher, like the power of the punch that Regal used to do. It's been used correctly. Like he's kept it relevant. So I'm excited to see where this goes. Now let's rattle off who's going to be on this match. We have Adam Page, who I'm saying it right now, he's going to win. I mean, I don't even have to read anybody else on the list. He's obviously the guy that's positioned to win this match. Adam Page, Alex Reynolds has zero chance of winning. John Silver, who's good but has zero chance of winning. Sammy Guevara, I could see that being like a dark horse type of thing. He might make it. He's going to make it to like the last four. Matt Hardy might win it too. Matt Hardy has seemingly become a heel now. He's like an arrogant asshole based on his promo. He has a chance. Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn have absolutely no chance. Matt Sydal has no chance. Scorpio Sky has a little bit of a chance. Sean Spears, I'm going to say he has no chance. And we have Orange Cassidy, who definitely has a chance. Definitely has a chance. Just because how he's been booked. Kip Sabian, Miro, Wardlow, and MJF is in it as well. Oh, MJF is in it. That's kind of cool. So I think it's going to be Adam Page. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was MJF or Miro or Orange Cassidy. If it's not those guys, it's not going to happen. I don't think Scorpio Sky's pulling it out. So there you go. Next up, see, that would be the only way that you can justify having Jericho versus Kazarian if Scorpio Sky were to win this match. Like, we couldn't put him in the singles match because he was going to have this moment. Whatever. And then we have the main event, of course, Kenny Omega versus Dean Ambrose. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how I feel about this match. Hopefully, the rest of this horseshit is just like done really quickly. So this match feels like a championship match. I understand that it's a lot to ask for because we're talking about an episode of AEW Dynamite. But the facts are what the facts are. This match has to go on longer or be better or both than the Eddie Kingston Moxley match. You know what I mean? It has to have those elements in place. In place, motherfuckers. It doesn't have to go longer necessarily, right? Because the whole going longer thing is subjective. Sometimes longer matches aren't that good. But it has to feel like a real main event. It cannot, under any circumstance, in my opinion, end in a screwy way. It cannot end in a count-out or a DQ or any of that horse shit. Someone has to win decisively. I do not see this match being won clean by Jon Moxley. I just don't see it, motherfuckers. Because if he does, then who is going to take the title from him? There is literally not one person in this company that is positioned to be a challenger to Moxley other than Kenny Omega. However, if Kenny Omega wins, there are a lot of people that are positioned to challenge him. Adam Page. He can start a program with Cookie Rhodes, just basically kind of being like, Cookie, you left the Elite and now you're with the Nightmare Family. You were never that good. I'm the Alpha, and you're the Omega in this case, right? And then he can goad Cody into like trying to challenge him, and then Cody remembering that he can't challenge him, and that could be a way that they circumvent the whole Cody Rhodes can't get a title shot ever scenario, right? Now, with all that being said, if somehow Jon Moxley wins this match, I think that's going to be like just horrible for AEW. I think people are going to start tuning out. Jon Moxley has been a shit champion. Like, I think he's been a worse champion here than he was in WWE, which is saying a lot because he's one of the worst WWE champions of all time. As a matter of fact, I think he would be the worst WWE champion in the last 20, 30 years if it weren't for the fact that Kofi Kingston then became champion. So, I got nothing more to say about this shit. I'm looking forward for Winter is Coming. definitely expect a review of that, motherfucks. Hopefully, and you know what? Here's the thing. I hope that I have good things to say about it, because a lot of people, you know, they get caught up, motherfucks. You know, I understand that my name is the hater, but I'm not here looking to hate things, right? Like my good friend Lars Henry said, he's one of the few people that gets it, I think. But like he said, right, it's more of an attitude, right? It's more about the idea that, like, I will hate it if it's to be hated. I'm not going to pretend that it's good if it's not good. However, I always want to see good things. You know, I know that primarily now at this point, I watch wrestling because of this channel, right? And that's why I haven't been doing as many videos, and that's why I haven't been growing as much as I was in the first few months that I started this, right? Because, like, I've been watching less and less because it's really hard to watch, you know? But I also watch because I like wrestling. I love wrestling, motherfucks. And in order for me to love wrestling and love wrestling more and more, I obviously hope that things are good. I would prefer that the hater sits here and talks to you about how great AEW was, and how great NXT was, and how great Raw was, right? If Raw were to become as good as it was back in the day, that would be like one of my dreams. You know, that would be like a dream come true. That's all I want. All I want is for Raw and wrestling and SmackDown and now AEW, NXT, TNA to be good again. That's all I want. You know, I don't want to see AEW fail. So a lot of times people on my videos, a lot of these smarks that end up here somehow, they'll say things like, oh, why don't you like this? Why don't you like that? You know what I mean? Like, oh, this thing, you don't know what you're talking about. You're an asshole, right? I'm just like, dude, I want MJF to be good. I want Cucky Rhodes to be good. I want these people to be good. And that's why I'm actually optimistic about Winter is Coming, you know? Some good things can go down. You know, periodically when I review like an episode of Raw or an episode of NXT sometimes, or when I review a pay-per-view, or when I make a general point about wrestlers specifically, I'll say good things, you know? Like, I'll be like, oh, this guy's pretty good. I always say I like Wardlow, right? There's people that I like, and it makes me happy when these people come around. But I haven't, except for Wardlow, which is a jobber, I haven't had this moment with AEW yet. I haven't had a moment where I've said to myself, this was a great episode of AEW Dynamite. Like, a really great episode. This might be the first one. So there you go, motherfucks. I'm here, open-minded as usual, ready to see something good. Now, will that happen? Or will I be disappointed once again, and then it turns out that Jon Moxley wins by DQ or some horseshit like that? Like Kenny Omega just goes crazy, turns heel and beats him with a chair because he can't beat him, he's frustrated, setting them up for a pay-per-view match where the feud can then end. If that shit happens, they can kiss my fat one, you understand? But I'm hoping that's not what happens. I'm hoping that we have some good, decisive finishes, some good wrestling, right? And more importantly, some good storytelling, right? That's why this pay-per-view, or this, see? Yeah, I did it right there. That's why this episode is important and noteworthy. Because in a match like the Diamond Ring Battle Royal bullshit, right? You have an opportunity there to make a new guy. You know, to make a guy be the next MJF. I know, being the next MJF isn't exactly being the next Stone Cold. But nonetheless, it's an opportunity to give someone an opportunity this coming year to put themselves over somehow, right? Maybe they did change a gimmick, right? Maybe if like let's say Mark Quinn won, right? Let's say Mark Quinn for some reason won the Dynamite ring, right? Then it writes itself, right? He continues teaming up with Isaiah Cassidy, and then he just becomes more and more arrogant. Week after week, he becomes more and more arrogant, eventually turning on Isaiah Cassidy and going on a singles run, right? Do you see what I'm saying? These kind of things, like the King of the Ring, the Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, these things can change careers. Not change careers because the guy might cash in and become champion. Like Edge, for example, his career was changed dramatically for Money in the Bank. But not because he used it, right? He used winning Money in the Bank to leverage himself into the main event. He started having serious feuds with people because he was being presented as a future champion. He did the whole thing with Lita, which was great, right? Not in real life. The real life part was shit. But the thing, the whole storyline with Kane, that was fucking awesome, right? So it's the same exact thing. King Kurt, remember King Kurt? Kurt Angle used the King of the Ring to catapult himself to the main event. You know, this is what these tournaments and these things can do for you. You know, MJF has also benefited from it substantially. But that's what I'm getting at, motherfuckers. We need this to mean something. And that's something that can happen. Who knows? Maybe this Layla, whatever the fuck her name is, right? Layla Hirsch or whatever. Maybe she wrestles Britt Baker and just beats the shit out of her and becomes like the next big thing. Who the fuck knows? There's an opportunity though, It's an opportunity. And that's all that matters in wrestling is opportunities and good booking. The opportunities are there. The question will become if they are able to pull the trigger and actually carry through this booking, It would really be shocking and it really, really would be sad if Kenny Omega doesn't win and therefore opening a slew of possibilities for this next year of AEW, motherfuckers. All right, see you later, bitches.